I know I usually do these closer to the middle of the designated month, but to tell you the truth, I may have burnt myself out a tad putting out 5 Halloween videos this year. So consider this a bookend to my fall season just a tad early so I can get some rest beneath the crunchy leaves before I awaken for slightly juicier projects I'm inspired to tackle very soon. But first, let's take some time to appreciate the little things. Despite all dubiousness regarding Disney's treatment of the brand, the Muppets' first major vehicle under the Disney label in years finally came around in Muppet Now, which is, as one may expect, an iteration aimed at a younger audience, but one with all the charm that I've been missing since I saw Muppets Most Wanted in theaters 6 years ago. And despite such a large gap, this show doesn't feel like it's missed a beat since then, as every character is still playing to their best strengths, whether it's Miss Piggy retaining her brilliant dynamic with Uncle Deadly from the ABC Muppet Show, or my personal favorite Muppet, Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, keeping his just unhinged enough charm to protect that position in my heart. If the idea of Muppets tackling streaming sounds trendy or all-consuming, it really isn't. As far as I'm concerned, these are the same Muppets who taught me to love Elton John and Lou Rawls and their show that dated back to the 1970s, and 2020 looks damn good on them. Destroy All Humans was one of those games I always saw in gaming magazine back ads and eventually the bargain bin at GameStop, and I had never tried it despite some lingering curiosities. It made a grand return in form of a remake this year, a gutsy move when much bigger names are doing the same. But Destroy All Humans made some strong choices between shifting its art style to something far more cartoony than its roots, which is far more befitting to its tongue-in-cheek writing and narrative, as well as choosing to make its comeback in what is proving to be perhaps the only era in which hysteria and public ignorance has been more prevalent than its setting of the 1950s, as the game's satire feels more relevant than ever, frankly. When you're not harvesting brains and blowing cities to smithereens, you'll be masquerading as politicians to sway the gullible public to your favor in these great sardonic dialogue sequences. If you're sick about hearing about the crumbling of our society in real life, then crumbling a fictional one could just be your fix. Hopping right from destruction to sheer optimism brings us Bill and Ted Face the Music, and that's precisely why I sought out this new release, as Bill and Ted, aside from just being charming performances, embody the hope and kindness needed to get through years like these. Despite a huge hiatus since Bogus Journey, the writing surrounding these characters still feels incredibly fresh, and Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne make great additions as Bill and Ted's daughters. The film acts as a love letter to the films prior, effortlessly blending the time travel and historical hijinks of Excellent Adventure with more fantastical elements that Bogus Journey brought to the table, but never feeling too jam-packed or factory-built. In a time where art is on the short list of livelihoods that are safe and retaining of power over one's demons in 2020, seeing Bill, Ted, and friends still saving the day with the pure power of music is insanely comforting. Ian Worthington is one of the most creative and charming animators on YouTube, always trying new things and applying his distinct art style to scripts the likes of which you just won't see elsewhere. Though I think his current opus has been his short series Big Top Burger. Despite a collective screen time less than 15 minutes, I found myself watching these over and over, still noticing small fun details. If Bill and Ted was all about finding the beauty in art and hobbies, then Big Top Burger helped me realize that no matter where I was, even someplace as unglamorous as a clown-themed food truck, great adventures are possible and family can be found. And that's incredibly important to remember. Worthington's usual flair for expressive, incredibly fun art and fluid animation are ever present alongside a great vocal cast. From Lindsay Small-Batera being adorably bewildered as Penny, and the always lovable Chris Fleming as the episodic villain Caesar of Zomburger. And on the topic of Chris Fleming, he's still knocking it out of the park of YouTube comedy too, Sick Jan being the undeniable bop of the summer. As I release this video, it is November 2020, the month I was supposed to be sitting in a theater with a massive drum of sody pop, enjoying Godzilla vs. Kong. And I think we all know how that went. I really needed to scratch that kaiju itch, and I looked to the IDW comics and their run, specifically Godzilla Rulers of Earth. And of any work with the mission of gathering every kaiju in one story, I think this is the one that does so best, helped in no small part by some stunning art and chapter murals that I think could stand side by side with the best of Godzilla promotional art. From classics like Kiryu and Gigan to deep cuts like the warring Gargantuas Gyra and Sanda, everyone is here, well utilized and well drawn in some good old fashioned, tower toppling, neighborhood smashing kaiju battles. These are a must read if there's any one kaiju you're at all fond of, because there's a good chance they get at least some decent spotlight. No matter how often Miyagi-Do did indeed win and have, virtues, I think we all wanted to be Cobra Kai, with their awesome outfits and snake motifs and 80s bully invincibility, and someone realized just how marketable all of that is and made Cobra Kai, a Karate Kid follow-up series from the point of view of underdog hero Johnny Lawrence, as he rebuilds the humble Cobra Kai dojo to take back his agency from the sinister capitalist and athletic cheater Daniel LaRusso. Jokes aside, flipping the script this way was a stroke of brilliance, as the ideals of Cobra Kai attract a whole slew of interesting characters and provide an infinite well of stories to tell, like Hawk, yesterday's defenseless nerd, turned tattooed Cobra Kai star child for better or worse. The show is corny as all get out, but in a way that makes it feel right at home in its 80s roots, so it's hard to complain about, especially when the displays of karate are just as engaging and sometimes brutal as ever. Speaking of series focused around theatrical contact sports with 80s roots, I also checked out Glow in the week of its downright spontaneous cancellation, and I'm just as outraged as everyone else now because this show is just a delight. With one of the most solid ensembles I've ever observed, the razor-sharp writing flips from hysterical to downright emotionally scarring at the drop of a hat. And I can't think of a better way to describe show business. And wrestling is such a fun sector of performance with its own culture and issues that lend themselves so well to a series like this. I will see the end of Liberty Bell's story, or I will riot. If you told me that prominently in the race for my 2020 Game of the Year frontrunner, neck and neck with a brand new Crash Bandicoot and a remake of Final Fantasy VII, would be a $20 reboot of Battletoads, I would have had you committed. But lo and behold, Battletoads is the most I've enjoyed a beat-em-up since River City Girls. And I don't think I've ever enjoyed a beat-em-up as much as River City Girls. I regret ever tolerating the school of thought that disparaged this game's new art style, because it really is the bread and butter that makes the game look so good, as the transformations the exceedingly charming Toads take whole new levels of destructive creativity, and make every combo and special move look colorful, kinetic, and terrific. I enjoyed every second of punching, kicking, transforming into locomotives, seamlessly tagging between Toads to keep a string of hits going, and weaponizing my own personal compact mechanical bullet to send foes flying. As if Battletoads' stellar beat-em-up gameplay wasn't enough, it's lovingly propped up even further with creative and diverse interlude games. From playing through the Toads' menial jobs to hectic spurts of precision platforming, all in the name of helping weave together a narrative story that is way more funny and genuinely engaging than it has any right to be. This game has secured a place among my all-time favorites of the genre, and I am incredibly saddened that its AA status and controversial art changes caused Microsoft's marketing of it to be practically non-existent. It costs less than a snazzy dinner if you want to share the experience I had with not just one of my favorite games this year, but what I would humbly call one of the best beat-em-ups ever. No matter what you have to say about Bleach, it's hard to deny what a great showcase it is for Tite Kubo's penchant for character design and world building, passions he brought to his manga one-shot Burn the Witch, which was adapted to an anime movie this fall. Burn the Witch takes place in the Bleach universe, but in a far-off, brighter atmosphere that takes similar spiritual and sort of gruesome ideas as Bleach, but in a far more fairy tale academy tone, and I really think it stands on its own perfectly fine. It really is the art and environmental storytelling that sells this. Look at the two main characters, Nini and Noelle, and how they both have to wear identical school uniforms. but how the small adjustments speak volumes to how different their personalities are. It feels a bit like a pilot with some deflating notions brought to life and no clear sign of continuation, but the design's world and overall whimsical tone are well worth that experience, and maybe enough support will put these characters back in the spotlight someday. I am a man of exquisite and masculating taste in cool and eclectic things to enjoy and scrutinize, and definitely not the Drew Barrymore show, even if she's in a ton of my favorite movies and is an absolute ray of sunshine who looks stunning in pink. Oh my god, she reunited the angels. I feel so seen, I feel so catered to. But I think the real highlight of the Drew Barrymore show so far has been her seasonal look back at Scream, a franchise of which Drew was the first character to die in the first 10 minutes of the first movie, making her all the more appropriate to host a slew of interviews of the various actors who played Scream victims in the Scream franchise, which was just a fun look back at a series that helped define horror as we know it by directly commenting on it. And catching up with Sarah Michelle Gellar, Patrick Warburton, and Henry Winkler, and hearing their behind-the-scenes stories is rather neat. When you're like me and always seeking out new things, it's nice to have something lax and irreverent of a great old work to help you slow down and appreciate it. And I loved revisiting Scream with its franchise family because of that, thanks in no small part to Drew. Thank you, Drew. Have me on the show sometime, or for dinner, or both. Oh hey, an intermission, and as long as we're halfway through, check out BK Draws on Instagram, who was kind enough to create that snazzy bowling alley floor style background I've been setting my avatar against for the transitions of these videos. Just one of those nice touches to help me personalize things. She's insanely talented, and you're going to want to give her stuff a look and give her Instagram a follow. Archer is what I would humbly call the perfection of the character-driven, adult-oriented animated sitcom for 7 seasons, after which Archer himself is put in a coma for 3 years, during which the show would take place within his dreams, and with the show's shift to atmospheric parody causing it to really change beyond recognition, I personally fell out of it. When word reached me that Season 10 would close with Archer waking back up, which would in turn cause a passing of position of showrunner away from Adam Reed, who birthed the magic of Archer a decade ago, I was cautiously optimistic, only to try out Season 11 as it got its start this year and fall right back in love with the show. Playing to its strengths once more, Archer hasn't skipped a beat with the hilarious and engaging dysfunction of our secret agent team, while long-hanging threads such as Archer and Lana's daughter AJ have incredibly cathartic follow-ups, and that one-of-a-kind, razor-sharp Archer wit has gone nowhere. When Archer reawakened after 3 years, so did my love for this old favorite of mine. If relationships feel to you like a mystifying labyrinth of high-stakes puzzles, then a literal personification of that notion, Catherine, is worth checking out, as I did with the recent Switch port of its complete edition, Full Body. The highly addictive and fast-moving puzzle play of Catherine is the exquisite cake upon which rests a creepy atmosphere and compelling mystery surrounding characters who are interesting against all odds of being sleazes, creeps, and jerks, giving a sort of mystery slasher tone as faces disappear, and almost nothing is what it appears. The game allows for multiple endings and a good deal of freedom narratively, meaning you can approach the parable true to a relationship very personally, and your mistakes and shortcomings are fully yours. And that's rather enthralling to me on top of being a challenging and fun puzzle game. My steamy affair with this game was not one I'll soon forget. If you ever wondered what Stranger Things might be like if the main characters grew up watching Blade instead of playing Dungeons and Dragons, you should check out Vampires vs. the Bronx, a movie that takes to the urban atmosphere of New York like a fish to water, but also uses this for a rather biting, no pun intended, commentary on gentrification. There's simply such a charm to fighting vampires in neighborhood block parties and struggling bodegas, and a really genuine and thorough understanding of contemporary urban youth rises in the small touches of this movie, as the disappearance of vampires' victims are covered on Instagram stories and kids play Xbox to prepare and desensitize themselves from the encroaching violence they're dealing with. It has all the charm of any horror comedy with teen protagonists, but it feels very honest and grim too, and handles subject matter you can't look to the camera and wink at. In this way, it balances humor and the macabre very effortlessly, and it was an instant addition to my Halloween party playlist. I haven't felt truly connected to Disney Channel in a long time, not since the ending of Gravity Falls, give or take. I know a lot of people love Owl House and Amphibia, but what's really captured my heart is Big City Greens, a super endearing show about a family hailing from farmland adjusting to life in the big city. As someone absolutely intoxicated by city culture, this exploration of it really makes me smile, going about it from an outsider perspective similar to how We Bare Bears does, but with a noted slapstick inspiration. Because what else would happen if you threw a hay-baling yahoo from the boonies into the heavy traffic and latte steam of a slicking city? I will also say, as a fellow stressed out adult, Bill Green is a mood and a half above all else. I feel for you, bro. With shows that have such a strong focus on continuity thriving on streaming, I kind of love how this has paved the way for cable to unleash a whole new era of character-focused slice-of-life cartoons. And this one stands super strongly in the same league and ilk as other modern classics like Craig of the Creek and The Loud House. Growing up raised by New York-born Italians where good gravy, movies, and travel were what it was all about, it's very little surprise that I resonate personally so much with comedian John Gabris and his conversation lifestyle podcast, High and Mighty. There's something about Gabris's lease on life that is incredibly infectious. Perhaps I'm glad I found someone who puts the same stock in iced coffee, video games, and garlic bread that I do. And despite the overall goofball nature of the fixture, there's a strange vulnerability that's inherent to exploring one's lifestyle that leads to watching John grow and learn as years go by of enjoying the podcast. John's side project, Action Boys, is also a delight as he brings his enthusiasm and humor to extremely fun explorations of the best and worst of Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Seagal. The Action Boys coverage of the, yes, I'm serious, Jean-Claude Van Damme hockey action movie Sudden Death being possibly the hardest I've laughed at nothing apparent with my headphones in my ears in broad daylight. 2020 seems to be the year I tried Nintendo IPs I've only been layman to for years. I delved into Animal Crossing with New Horizons being my favorite lockdown pastime, and I tried Fire Emblem with 3 houses, which even if I didn't make it far in, gave me specimens that put best girls everywhere to shame. And another surprise this fall came in the form of my first foray into the Pikmin franchise, with the brand new Deluxe port of Pikmin 3. There is something exceptionally satisfying about Pikmin's style of exploration and scavenging-based gameplay. Very little feels more rewarding than lifting massive fruits and dead animals back to my ship to research. It has all the feel-good brain chemicals gained from collecting in Animal Crossing, but mixed with the massive asset management and action of the wonderful 101. Despite how cute the character designs and lighthearted music is, there's something quite urgent and even harrowing as days go by and you see how little food rations you have left, which is why it's so much fun to juice found fruits into a few more days' provisions to carry on. It's an extremely compelling survival story with some brilliant gameplay mechanics. Counterintuitive as this may sound, I found this kind of a perfect game to play, transitioning from fall to winter as you explore a lot of areas, environments, and climates to match the shifting of weather and seasons, and do an autumn harvest of food to keep you and your close ones going, in sometimes unforgiving landscapes. Thanksgiving is kind of a gross meaning in real life, but maybe I'll fix it up in my head to be a banquet in celebration of Pikmin. After bringing gorgeous life to the lore of Castlevania via their animated adaptation, Powerhouse Animation Studios next decided to apply their incredibly distinct flavor to Greek myth with Blood of Zeus. It's this team's talent for harsh and harrowing storytelling that allows the stories of Greek gods like Zeus and Hera to fit like a glove. But while this could easily feel like Castlevania but in Greece, There are a lot of artistic flourishes through the art, music, and atmosphere that harken back to works like Clash of the Titans and Jason and the Argonauts, allowing it to stand out just enough on its own while fitting in with its production family. This show also has some seriously stunning depictions of various Greek creatures and deities, certainly not least of all maybe my favorite take on Zeus I've ever seen. On the topic of Greek myth, I also want to give an honorary shout out to the indie hit sweeping the airwaves, Hades. I didn't personally purchase this one because I'm not at all fond of the roguelike genre, but it was hard to dismiss Hades completely with its absolutely breathtaking art and interpretations of Greek characters. Couple that with an honestly brilliant narrative take on the roguelike genre, and even if it's not my thing, I'll happily root for this contender for many Game of the Year lists. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll just need a teeny tiny rest as the weather changes, and then I have some big projects in mind that I'm really excited to tackle, but I'm just really going to want to spend my time with. So the whole weekly upload thing might not be a thing so consistently, at least for the near future, but I'm really excited for some of the bigger things I have planned. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed these little things and have a great winter.